Welcome to PCS with Military.com. I'm your host, Amy Bouchatz, Military.com's executive editor. On this podcast, we talk about everything you need to know to make this military move season your best yet. PCS with Military.com is brought to you by Navy Federal Credit Union, proudly serving all branches of the armed forces, veterans, and their families. No matter where you are in your military career, Navy Federal Credit Union has the products and resources to help you navigate your finances. Learn more at NavyFederal.org. Our members are the mission. Now, let's get this PCS started. A military move is a challenge for even the most organized, rule-following, receipt-keeping, record-compiling person among us. As a military family member, I know that whether I like it or not, it's entirely on me to keep the details of our military move straight. In a perfect world, the systems would work flawlessly. Finance would take mere days to reimburse us for any qualified expenses and would give us our per diem pay right away. The movers would not only simply avoid breaking and losing my stuff, but they would deliver it somehow better than it was when it was packed. And not only would I have some idea of where we were going to live when we got where we were going, but when we arrived, it would be sparkling clean and smell like freshly baked cookies. Well, that's La La Land. In real life, you have to be a military move ninja. And it's for real life that we have people like Megan Harless, an Army veteran and Army spouse. Megan Harless is also so keyed in to the hacks around creating a smooth PCS and pushing for fixes to a broken system that we named her Military.com's 2020 Changemaker of the Year. But her work around reform is a different topic for a different day. That's because Megan is also the owner of PCSlikeapro.org, the author of PCS Like a Pro book, and the creator of PCS Like a Pro binder system. Do you see a theme here? In short, she knows how to PCS like a pro. And today she's joining us to share her best tips and tricks. Megan, welcome to PCS with Military.com.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So I'm really excited to have you on because you are a pro, as previously discussed. But first, okay, start by telling us, let's lay some street cred. How many times have you personally moved with the military or otherwise?
So with the military, we have done 10 PCSs with my
Holy
family.
crap.
We are inching up on 16 years now. And then within there, we have also done 2 local moves as well. So put it together about 12 moves that we've done in the span of 16 years.
Yeah, that's a lot. And let's not discredit those local
Yeah.
moves because they offer their own stresses and their own learnings. And
Mhm.
gosh, they help you know what to do next time when you PCS without being local. Like I learned so much by moving once during a duty station, right? Like from one part of
Yeah.
town to another. So much. So yes, that is totally a thing. Man, okay, street cred is, I mean, that's a lot of moves. You
Yeah.
have you have high street cred. Choose, good job. Okay. Uh, Other than the street cred, give us a little background on how exactly one becomes a PCS ninja. How does that happen?
So I kind of got I don't know what the best way to say it is, involved in the whole PCS process
Sucked into?
in a way. So back in 2018, if many of us remember, that was kind of like a horrible move for a lot of people. I was fortunate enough that we moved in 2017 and then not again until 2019. So we kind of missed that chunk of time where a lot of people just had a horrible move. And so at the time I had wrote this open letter, it turned into a petition on change.org. It was basically a military family's grievance of the moving process. We were tired of stuff breaking. We were tired of the answer to everything being, just file a claim on it. Some things money can't replace. We have memories that are tied to our things. And so in our ever changing world where, our constant is our household goods, like we were just kind of fed up. We were kind of at rock bottom. So this petition that I posted on like a Friday, completely thought it would kind of die off into internet land over the weekend. Didn't happen. Kind of went the opposite direction. And over 100,000 service members and family members had signed to this petition. And so it got the attention of the media, obviously. It got attention of other military families. It got the attention of folks in Congress. I was, working with several senators' offices, working on drafting language to a letter that they sent to Transcom, working with got the attention of the moving industry and, of course, Transcom, and it kind of was an eye opener of, like, hey, there really are some issues happening, and maybe it's the time that we start addressing these things. Um, so once that kind of all took place and took off, it was one of those things where I didn't want to just take it for what it is. Like I did this petition, got their attention, like, okay, we're good. Somebody will do something. Part of me felt like this responsibility of, like, we got this traction, we got this momentum, we got this visibility on this big issue. Let's see it through now to make sure that changes do happen and that it's not just lip service that we're given of, oh, we'll look into it. So from there, since then I've been working with Transcom kind of regularly. Every month we meet on a spouse advisory panel. We discuss the issues that are going on, provide feedback from what families are experiencing, try to come up with, reasonable solutions that can be implemented to kind of improve the process. And in there, it's also working with the moving industry as well. A lot of what I have found, there aren't those conversations happening. They don't really know what goes on in our home on the regular when we move. And so it's kind of educating, it's not just moving down the street with those local moves, but our lives are starting all over at a new location. And so, we do get a little upset when something shows up broken and damaged because we may not be able to just buy a new one from Ashley Furniture or from Walmart or wherever. These things mean something to us. And we just want you to take a little pride in your work and to make sure that, things go as they're supposed to do. So because of all of that, I've really have dived into the regulations. I've really dived into the process to the changes that
Okay,
they,
you're like totally just blowing by that. Like, guys, Megan, I think like the way people memorize the
yes.
Bible, Megan has memorized the joint travel regulation, right? That's the
Yes, there's
acronym that's
two,
in.
so JTR and DTR.
Okay, so you've
Yeah.
memorized these things in a way that is just um really nerdy and awesome. And that, I mean, I don't know if our listeners are a bunch of nerds, but I am. So I'm
Mhm.
just gonna go and say that I think that's amazing. So that, I mean, don't blow by the hard work of memorization now. No, no.
Yeah. So yeah, so it's taking these regulate. I mean, we hear about them occasionally with different briefs. We always, the it's your move document. We're always told to go read. What exactly is this thing type of deal. The answer is always, well, it's on move.mil. Go check move.mil. And it's just I don't know where to find it, and I don't exactly know what this means. So it was diving into all of that, figuring out what it is that families really need to know, and then working hard to educate families on these are the regulations. This is where you can find it at. This is what it means, and this is how you can use it to make your move better and smoother than what it's been in the
Yeah.
past.
Yeah, like, these are the things you're supposed to be getting, and here,
Mhm.
make sure you get them. So, you and I have a different episode where we talk about all of the regulations and things that people need to know and all that stuff,
Mhm.
and, that listeners can look at. We're not going to, like, deep dive into the regulations today because, it's like its own separate subject,
It
and it's
is.
so
Yeah.
important to understand that stuff. Even if you've moved 10, 12 times, stuff is constantly changing. And maybe you don't like, there's still things that I'm learning, even though I have moved multiple times, not 12. But I have been reporting on this for a decade. There's still stuff that I'm uncovering, thanks to you, largely in
Mhm.
these regulations. That I'm like, oh, well, if I'd memorized that like Megan, maybe I would know that, but I didn't. So,
Yeah.
but that's why we have you. And also, one more thing is that the reason we made you change maker of the year is because it is so easy just to slap something on the internet and call it good. It is a responsibility. Words have meanings, and when you stick
Mhm.
stuff on the internet, you can walk away. Like, you have a choice. You can just like be like, oh,
Yeah.
peace out, like, had my impact, have a nice day. But you didn't do that. You took it on, and I just like, that's just such a big deal. So, bravo again, and thank you for doing that for us, because really you are doing that for us as a military community, and that's a big
Mhm.
deal. Okay, but what I love about your story is that you did not just like have, dive into the guys, we made her tear up because it's true. It's so true. Like this is like real stuff, guys. Like she's just a normal human. I'm looking at her
Yeah.
right now. Okay. Um, but also a little bit of a ninja. I think she wears a PCS ninja costume sometimes. Um,
Yes.
yeah, cool. Okay, good talk.
It's red and sparkly, comes in
Oh, that's
multiple
not what I
sizes.
was
Yes.
envisioning, but that's good. Okay. So here's the deal. In addition to diving into the joint travel regulation and all these like things that are not fully in English, okay, and memorizing them for the benefit of
Mhm.
humanity, you also were like, whoa, hey, I've moved 10 times and I know things. So now you leverage that for this like really helpful and guides to help people move this PCS like a pro thing. And so today what we're going to talk about is how to PCS like a pro.
Mhm.
And you're going to tell us stuff like just, very not even necessarily super deep dive, just like stuff maybe we didn't think of, stuff we need to know. And so I'm really excited about that. So, with that in mind, will you tell us what is your number one biggest key, the biggest thing we need to know for creating a smooth PSCS? Like if we remember nothing else, what should we remember?
So the biggest thing that I always tell people, and we already touched on it a little bit, is the regulations. Just knowing the regulations, reading them, knowing what your responsibilities are, knowing what your mover's responsibilities are. I hear from a lot of families a lot of times, well, my transportation office didn't say that. They said this instead. The regulations, they change yearly. And so with that, those folks in your office, they may not get the memo that things updated. The JTR is constantly updated throughout the year as things get passed and approved. The DTR usually gets updated once a year when the tender of service changes and goes into effect. And so those folks
What does
may
that
not.
mean? What does that mean?
So that is the tender of service. You'll find it, the DTR Part 4, Appendix B is
Oh
called
my
the
gosh, she
tender of
does have it
service.
memorized, guys. Whoa.
Yes. So that is basically the contract between the government and your moving company, or you'll
Hmm.
hear it called TSP, Transportation Service Provider. That's what they're held to. That's what they are supposed to do. That's what they're supposed to provide. That's how they're paid off, is based off of that document. And so that updates every year as new changes are implemented and put into place. And so those folks in the office, they may not realize that, they may not know that, they may not pay attention to that. And so I always say go back to the regulation because it's there in black and white. If you have an issue with your mover, if you have an issue with something, you can easily pull that up, reference it, show it, and it's not just hearsay of, well, my office told me this or this person
Right.
said that. So
Slap that bad boy down.
yeah, so the biggest thing I always say is know the regulations, review them. If you don't read them, know where to find them and how to reference them, so that way you can, help yourself, protect yourself, and have them there to use.
So what I hear you saying is you are your biggest advocate. And I'm
You
sure we'll
are,
come back to
yes.
that later.
Yeah.
But and the other thing you just said that I think is interesting is like we tend, I think, to think about um moving as a service provided, right? So when I walk into my doctor's office, my responsibility is to show up and his responsibility is to treat me, right? And then
Yeah.
Tricker's responsibility is to hopefully pay for it all. Okay. When I move, my responsibility is not to just be alive, like, and have stuff, right? There's more to it than that. I have responsibilities for this
Yes.
move, as do the movers, and it's more than just being alive. And
Yes.
and I don't think we think about it that way. I think that we think of this as purely as a service provided and not
Mhm.
as something we have to take literal ownership of, on our end too.
Yeah, and I tell people to, you have to have a hand in it. You have to play an active role in your move. It is your stuff that's being moved. So, I mean, if you want that crystal vase packed a certain way, let them know so that way they can pack it how you want it. Whenever a moving crew shows up to your home, whether it's the crew to pack on day one, the crew to finish packing on day two, or the crew to load or unload, whatever it may be, you kind of set that tone for your move with how you greet them. Don't treat them like the enemy, because that just starts off on the bad foot. It's important that you kind of create that environment of, we are a team, we're going to do this together, this is how I want things done, this is what I need to have done. For me, my bedroom and my kitchen are always the last things packed, because I enjoy cooking to the last day, because I hate eating out for 3 weeks straight. My bedroom is usually where we corral my cats to keep them away because they have anxiety. They will attack people that they don't know, and so moving day is just very chaotic and hectic for them. So we
She's
corral.
a PCS ninja who has attack cats.
Yes, yeah, I do. So we keep them corralled into my room. So everything else is free game to pack. But I always ask them to start with my kids' rooms because my kids need to stop adding stuff to the car pile. And if their stuff is in boxes, they can no longer do that. So I always ask them to start there. So having that plan and telling them what you need done, really makes it feel like they are helping you, but they're doing what you want them to do.
Right.
If that kind of makes sense. So you work together as a team and you set that tone and if you have questions about something, ask them, be available. Don't just say, "Here's my house, pack my stuff and sit on your couch for the next 3 hours," and then wonder why something bad is happening. So
Oh, yeah, I did
be
that.
be involved in your move.
I have this, like, vision as you're saying that of me sitting on what was admittedly a ridiculously comfortable
Mhm.
couch, uh, in our first apartment at our first duty station, right, watching these people. I mean, not a big place, right, so it's, like, chaos, and I'm just like, "I don't know what to do with my hands," you know? And it was not a like, that
Yes. Yeah.
decision did not have big repercussions, but, like, I just literally didn't know what I was doing. I don't know, like, I'm just kinda
Yeah.
here, and here we go, you
And
know?
some people are like that. They're not sure what to do. So, I mean, walk into the room, just check what's going on, see what else is going on. I mean, in my kids' room, we always find socks and some candy wrappers underneath the bed.
Mhm.
So, like, I'm in there when I see that they've made it to that part, pulling that stuff out. I'm checking the boxes that our last name is spelled correctly because we've had it spelled multiple ways. I'm making sure that they're not just labeling the box as, boys stuff, but like what does boys stuff mean? Is it their books? Is it their Legos? Is it their action figures? And when you see things like that, saying like, "Hey, can you write what's in the box so that way I know, if it's something that goes into the closet or if my child can unpack it or is it their clothes?" Um,
Right.
so be involved, just be present, just go check on random little things and be a part of it.
I'm a big fan of outsourcing, like, work smarter, not harder, and letting experts do what they do best. So, while I could sit down and create things for myself and organizational systems, no, you have a PCS binder for us. Okay, so
Yes.
people can get a kit for that on your website, pcslikeapro.org. But can you walk us through creating one? Like, if we look at your binder, what goes in the binder? And I do like envision this in all caps, the binder.
The binder, yes. So, a lot of people, so I'm old school. I like a three-ring binder. A lot of people, depending on your organization method, techniques, prefer an accordion style type of file thing. Some folks prefer a zip binder of some sort, but I use a three-ring binder. So, whatever it is that you have, just use that. So, in this, I have multiple tabs that kind of help organize my life and the things that we need to get from point A to point B. So one tab will be like our orders, my husband's orders, and his LES and his leave form. So that way we can legally get from A to B, and he's not some AWOL type of person. Um,
That's how things go south real fast.
yes, and make multiple copies of your spouse's orders. Like you think they may not need it, you think like one is good, but when he goes to in process, like every office wants their own copy, and just having a picture of it on your phone doesn't really do well. Um, so don't be afraid to make all those copies. Another tab has all of our, if we have hotel reservations, either on either end of our move, I put a copy of that in there. If we are driving someplace, I do old school again, print out some Google MapQuest directions. Technology does fail at times. Sometimes you hit a dead spot in cellular tower coverage. So I always just like to be that extra planning person. So I have a copy of those directions there. Um, a couple other tabs contain stuff like our current lease and our move out checklist that we need. And I'll also save copies of any receipts we use for that move out. So if I need to hire a professional carpet cleaner or I have somebody come in to professionally clean the home because I'm just over it and don't want to do it myself.
And you like
Uh,
outsourcing too?
yes. Listen, we used to clean our home and everything. So I was just like, I'm saving that money. Like I can go wipe stuff down. And then I finally outsourced it once and had somebody come in and clean, and it was the greatest thing in the world. So I now budget that into our PCS expenses, and it's
And you're
great.
saving those receipts because
Yeah.
those things are how do you use those receipts later? Why are you
Um,
saving them?
Okay, so for like your carpet cleaning and house cleaning, you're not necessarily like the military isn't going to pay you to reimburse you that. But whatever your expenses are and what you get paid reimbursed from the military for the different entitlements, whatever is not covered, whatever is not paid for, you can use that on your taxes
Mm.
when you go to file your next taxes. It helps reduce the cost or the taxable income that you have or the percent of taxes that you pay.
So you're saving for that. And you guys
Yes.
can hear an episode with a finance expert talking about money stuff for your PCS move
Hmm.
on a different PCS with Military.com episode. So we
Yes.
we have all the things. We're very,
Yes.
very handy.
Yeah, so
So
save all of those receipts. I also have, if we already have a lease signed at our next location, I've got a copy of that lease in there so I can easily reference it when we go to do our move-in walkthrough. If we don't have a lease or if we aren't buying a home, I have a couple of listings in there or an idea of, where we want to live so we know where to go and look. I have a couple of tabs for our what I call our medical and life documents. So
mm,
one will be like your medical records, your shot records, your dental records, your eye exam, your whatever it is of your personal body medical file. The other one is like your birth certificates, your marriage certificate, your social security cards, your passports, vehicle registrations, insurance policies. Um,
it's stuff that would really suck
yeah.
if they lost it.
Yes.
And some people move a safe full of
Hmm.
valuables, like that's great. Maybe you keep those documents in the safe. You're saying all that stuff is in the
I
binder.
put it all in the binder. And so some of this stuff, I mean, you may worry about it falling out. So they make these really great 3-ring, um, I don't know what to call them, pocket file
Mm.
thingies where they
Mhm.
have zippers on them or
Yep.
slides on them. I put all of that in there and I attach it wherever that tab is. I flip that tab and put that 3-ring pouch in there.
I feel
Um,
like you spent a lot of time in Office Max.
I have Staples, Office Depot, Target, Walmart, their office aisle, like it
Just
feels
makes
like
your heart
home to
sing.
me. It
Yeah,
does. It does. It's like I've arrived at my place. My Amazon wish list contains like post-it notes in various colors and like highlighters and like fancy pens and stuff. So like
amazing.
it makes me happy. Um, and then like other tabs include like, school records if you've got children or vet records if you've got pets.
Mm.
And then a tab for like miscellaneous stuff, like you need to keep this, but you don't know where it goes. Like stick it in that miscellaneous tab. And then the final one is your moving information. So
Ooh.
your move inventory that they give you, both the inventory for your boxes and for your furniture, the contact info for your moving company and your move coordinator, contact info for your local transportation offices, or your QA inspector, whoever that may be. All that moving stuff, if you need to get a hold of somebody or when you get to your location, your stuff gets delivered, you've got your inventory to check off your numbers. That all goes in your binder and not just stashed somewhere else. And then we talked about the 3-ring pouch deal. I have another one of those where all of our receipts along the way, our hotel receipts, our gas receipts, our food receipts, I shove all of those into that pouch as well. So it's all right there in the binder as well.
This is so much better than my confession time. Previous method of letting my husband, yeah, I'm gonna blame him, letting him shove the receipts into the glove box, right? Like,
Hmm.
in short, due to a lack of system, this is the system, right? Like,
Yes,
we have
we've
no
done that.
system. This is what this is. Yeah, you've done that. You've moved 10
Yes.
times, and you did not arrive at PCS Ninjahood or ownership of the binder by happenstance. You probably learned the hard way. Am I
Yes.
right?
Yes. I mean, when I think back to like our first couple of PCSs, like I had a 2-pocket folder that I was just like tucking stuff in. There were a couple things paper clipped here and there, but there was no real system. And with each PCS, the whole needs of necessity type of deal, is the mother of creation thing. And so it's just like there has to be something better. I've got to get this. We were started having kids, we started having pets. There started being a more need of more stuff to hand carry from A to B. And it's just like there has to be a better way. And so just sitting down over time and learning with each move as to what the best method would be, how to best organize it, and it all evolved into the binder.
Just a quick pit stop here to thank our sponsor. PCS with Military.com is brought to you by Navy Federal Credit Union. They might be called Navy Federal, but they don't exclusively serve sailors. Serving all members of the armed forces, they have the products and resources to help you navigate your finances through every phase of life. So, even if you can't tell port from starboard, they'll still help you learn about mortgages and auto loans. Learn more at NavyFederal.org. Navy Federal Credit Union, our members are the mission, an equal housing lender. And now, back to the show. So, based off of your own experience, you've created this glorious piece of organizational perfection. Uh, what, and you've made mistakes, but you also spend quite a lot of time. I mean, we talked about the binder and we talked about your website. You also run a Facebook group on this subject. Remind us
Mhm.
what that one is called.
It's PCS like a pro, your smooth move.
Okay, so in that we have a whole world of people asking for advice and then I mean, I watch this happen all the time. So they are like, I don't know what to do about this like perfectly legitimate, terrible thing. Okay. And you dive in with citing the JTR, which you've memorized, and and give all the help anyone needs, and it's really fantastic.
Mhm,
But in there, we can watch people sort of learn the hard way, for better or for
mhm.
worse. Sometimes, that's just you don't know what you don't know. So, what are based on all of this experience? What are the biggest mistakes people make? Tell us 3 or 4 things that are the road to not having a smooth PCS.
Oh, goodness. I feel like there's so many I could share. Picking out just a few is so it's gonna be hard for me. So to sound like a broken record, not knowing your regulations, just letting stuff happen to you is not how you should go about doing things. If you feel like something is wrong, it's okay to stop them and ask a question and to, verify what it is that they are doing, why they are trying to do something. It could just be that maybe you don't understand something and what they're doing is the right way to do it. It could be that maybe they're trying to cut corners and you're just like, no, I feel like this is wrong and it looks like wrong,
But you
so
don't know that unless you know the rules.
right. And so just, knowing those regulations just goes a long way to helping you advocate for yourself and helping you to be involved in the process. Another big thing, I guess, would be not having your own inventory of what's in your home, what you own.
That's such a huge
It
job,
is.
like, every
It
time I
is.
read that advice from you, I'm like, "Woof." Whoa, hey, that is just such a huge I don't even have that
It
much
is.
stuff, although my husband has a lot of outdoor gear, let's not talk about that, but, like, we don't have, in the great scheme of things,
Mhm.
that much stuff. We moved here to Alaska with, like, 5,000 pounds I mean, like, almost
Yeah.
nothing, okay?
Yeah.
Uh Nonetheless, I feel like that even the concept of that is overwhelming.
Mhm. So it does have a lot of upfront time investment into it where you sit down and you can make it as detailed or as undetailed as you want. It does require some good time investment upfront to create it if you don't have one already done, but then just updating it yearly or every 6 months or so, if you have a big birthday, holiday, travel, whatever
Yeah,
it may be, that doesn't take very much time. But the importance
right.
of having your own inventory is, should a box go missing, you're able to easily identify what was perhaps
In
in
there.
that box. If you
Yeah,
have a
because that's what
yeah.
happens, right? Like, you just don't know like, "Oh, well, I mean, this box is missing, no idea what's going in it." The other
Mhm.
thing that jumps to mind is I feel like if you were to create this inventory, you would suddenly have less stuff due to due to going through everything you own and realizing you didn't actually want this particular you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
that's a
yeah.
real good way to spend a lot of time going to Goodwill. Yeah.
Yes. So, and the other big importance of having this inventory is that if you have a catastrophic loss, you
Mm,
have to itemize. I mean, if you want to really be paid value of what your stuff was and not just by the liability limit, you really need to itemize what you have. And so, if you already have that inventory created, it's too easy to say, here's a copy of what I had. Uh, and then if you go and file with your private insurance, they're going to need a spreadsheet as well as to what did the moving company cover, what did they not cover. And again, you've already got spent the time and you've got that information. So it's one of those build it so you have it and hope you never have to use it type of things.
yeah.
But just having your inventory, I hate seeing when people say, I have 7 boxes missing. I don't know what was in them. Two of them said closet items, one of them said linens, one
That
of
might
them
be your
said,
printer. Who knows?
and movers are notorious for that, where they take things from other rooms, because they have a box and they want to fill the space in the box. So your crystal vase might be in that box labeled closet items. But
Yeah.
having your inventory goes a long way of you knowing what you have in case something should happen.
Yeah.
Um,
What's another tip? Oh,
Another one
they're so
would
good.
be, when your stuff arrives at your new home, checking off your inventory numbers as your stuff
People don't do
comes.
that. Like, this is a mistake. Like, people just sit back
Yeah,
on I'm back on the comfortable couch that I'm super glad to see
yeah.
again, right?
Like the truck shows up and you're excited to see your stuff, and so you're just directing traffic of, this is child's room number 1, this is child's room number 2, master bedroom's back there, this is what we're calling the living room, type of deal. And so
Yeah.
a lot of folks don't check off their inventory numbers, and so they go to start unpacking and they realize, they're just like, I feel like we're missing 2 boxes, but I don't know, you know, what they are because we didn't do that. And it's very important because number one, when your stuff is delivered, you have to sign the inventory form, and anything that's missing needs to be identified that day.
Right.
If it's something that's in a box, like that's okay. But if it has its own inventory number, it has to be identified that day. So if you sign your inventory saying your stuff arrived, you're going to get a lot of pushback and probably denial of your claim for
Mhm.
those missing items because you didn't identify it that day.
Yeah.
Um, so just checking off your inventory numbers lets you know, have that peace of mind that yes, everything did arrive. All the inventories numbers did arrive. We're not missing any of those line item things.
What's a surprising mistake people make? And I'm wondering, like, based on for what we've talked about, I'm wondering if it's not just like people don't know the rules. So is that
Um,
am I smelling it out right? But maybe something that feels like people it should be obvious, but people just don't know it. Tell us so we can avoid it.
um, besides what we've already talked about, I think a big one would, I'm going to say private insurance and canceling
Mm.
your private insurance before your move. A lot of policies, and this is where I want to tell you right now, go check your personal policy to see and double check that it covers your
This is
household
your
goods in transit, renters
renter's
or
insurance,
homeowners.
homeowners ins okay.
Yeah. So make sure it covers your items in transit between locations, and make sure it covers your items in storage. Some do, some don't. So make sure you have that policy. But a lot of people are just like, well, I rent my home and we're moving. Like I can save a month of payment if I cancel my insurance because we're not in a home for those 30 days because we're in the process of moving and waiting for our next house type of deal. The issue is if something happens, you have that catastrophic loss, God forbid, you know, the the TSP, the moving company liability, is only up to $75,000, based off of $6 per pound for your shipment. So if it costs $300,000 to replenish the stuff in your home, you're not getting that from the moving company. And if you canceled your renter's insurance, you're not getting that from anybody.
I think that is surprising to a lot of people, and we also touched on this in the finance episode. So, but this cannot be hammered home enough, guys. Like
Yes.
you have like we've talked about, you have a responsibility for your own PCS, and that this
Hmm.
assumption, and I think you're right. Like I feel like I do assume that, like if you break it, you buy it, right? Well, that's not entirely true, and it's interesting that you mentioned this because just yesterday I saw a thread on a Facebook group here for at Joint Base Elmendorf Richardson, Alaska, where
Yes.
somebody has a shipment that was, I believe, stolen. Her key spouse is trying to help her out, figure out what do you need to know, and everybody's saying, well, um, did you have renter's insurance? And I don't know the answer for them, but like I was surprised how many people on this thread did not know that their renter's insurance may or may not, but might cover. Like it was they concluded that it did not cover, right? They just assumed. Um, and so we talk about that in the finance episode. Listen to that, guys, for more intel on this. But it's a super, super, super important thing to remember, and I don't think that we can talk about it enough. So with that in mind, give us a couple of pieces of advice, just like some real solid takeaways that we can take, like actionable. You're getting ready for a PCS. Go forth, do this?
So the first things I tell folks is one, as I've said before, read the regulations or at least know where to find them. Take the little notes app of your phone, copy the links there so you can go back and look at them later, but know the regulations. Another thing I always tell them, that home inventory that we discussed, and then being organized. That's everything with the PCS binder that we've discussed, but also with your home. Take the time to walk through your home, take a room or two a day, depending on how big your home is, and just go through it. Do what's called the PCS purge. My always rule of thumb, if it's not sentimental, and if you didn't use it as at this duty station, and you're not going to use it at your next duty station, it's time for it to go. It's outlived its purpose. Somebody else needs it. Go ahead and get rid of it. One that helps you have less stuff you have to put on your inventory, but also it helps you with your weight allotment. You're not going to have to worry about going overweight because you've cleaned out, you've purged, and when you unpack, it's less stuff you have to put away. I mean, get rid of it on this end. And so go through, do that. And then I am a big fan of pre-packing. So really quick with the rules, anything that the company takes possession of into their moving truck, they are liable for regardless of who packed it. The PBO, packed by owner, is no longer allowed to be used on the inventory. So you can pack, you can pre-pack. If you do pack a box, they need to be able to look inside of it to verify for the contents for the inventory. But I do pre-packing. So I will put trash bags over my hanging clothes and coats to protect them. I will put my folded stuff into Ziploc flex totes to help protect them. I don't want dirty hands and strangers' hands touching my shirts and my pants and all that stuff. So,
And
taking a
the
moment.
drawer, your special
Yes.
drawer.
Yes, that you hide in the middle of your t-shirts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want strangers' hands touched on it. So I do things like that. My office supplies, like all of my millions of paper clips and pens that I have, I put them into Ziploc bags. So that way I'm not fishing out pens and pencils and crayons from the bottom of the box like a crazy person sometimes. That it's easy. It makes easy packing and it makes it easier to unpack. I can pull that bag out, set it on my desk. I can organize it later, but I can get that box out of my house and I'm not fishing for pens in it.
Yeah. And this is
Yeah,
more taking responsibility
it is.
for
Yeah.
your own move. Which I feel like my gut reaction to that is, well, gosh darn it, why do I have to do that? They're making me
Hmm.
move. But I guess this is just one of those things that it's just a part of military life, and if you accept it, your move will be, pardon the phrase, smoother. So
Yes. Yes. And I feel like whatever I can do to help prep my home and to get it into a moving stage, the better. The easier the
yeah.
process will go. I don't have to have people here trying to pack my home at 9 o'clock at night when my kids are trying to go to bed because we're in our last week of school.
And
I
less
just,
stress,
yeah.
whether or not it's the rules, anything that I
Hmm.
can do to reduce my stress around moving is really,
Yeah.
I think really helpful, and I always underestimate how stressful that move moment is. I'm super prepared. I know to check the inventory thing. I'm going to follow these movers around my house and just make sure everything's going well. And then when push comes to shove, I'm almost paralyzed on the couch in a way. I just can't do
Yeah.
this anymore. It's,
Yep.
it's in
Yeah.
God's hands, you know?
Eventually you do hit that PCS wall where you're just so be it. If it happens, it happens. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Everybody has that PCS wall they hit at some point. And so I feel like I know ahead of time I'm going to hit it at some point. So it's, what can I do while I still have the energy and the motivation to prep my home and to do something that I use and I do. Because I know on the unpacking, I'm going to be like, just shove it into that closet for now. We'll deal
Absolutely.
with that later.
One thing I want to come back to before
Yeah.
we close that I did not for those listening, I sort of shared with Megan what I thought we would talk about today. I did not share with her this question. It just popped into my little brain while we were talking. So my apologies. All right, just on the fly here. Okay. But you mentioned earlier being nice to your movers, and that made me think about this push and pull we have with that. And the biggest, you know what's coming, the biggest discussion around this is feed the movers, tip the movers, slide alcohol to the movers. What do you do? Where do you stand?
So tell you the regulation first is
Cool.
that it is at your discretion. Tipping and feeding is not required. But they should not be asking for it. They should not be
Right.
asking you, like, how much is our tip? Like, when are you getting us lunch? Like, they should not be asking for it. And it's totally at your discretion if you want to do it. As for what my family does personally, we do not tip, but we do feed. And part of my decision to feed our crews is one, like my husband or me are still here in the home, watching things happen, getting things going. If one
Mhm.
of us, I mean, we have to eat too. And usually when people are in my home, like I don't want to start cooking lunch. Like I'll cook dinner because I have kids and they're usually off at school or whatever, but I don't want to, I'm not a big cook lunch myself type of person. So one of us will say, hey, we're going to go get Chick-fil-A. We're going to go get Wendy's. What do you want? We offer, one or two places, but tell them we're only going to go to
Mhm.
one. We go pick up lunch, and I personally feel like if one of us can go pick up lunch, they can keep working.
Right.
And then we bring lunch back. They've got 30 minutes that they'll take to eat it, and then they'll get back to working, and they're out of my home at a reasonable hour. If they have to stop working and go get it, you're looking at that I don't know what you want to call it, the labor lunch, where, an
Yeah.
hour, hour and a half,
Yeah.
2 hours, when we feel like we've rested from our siesta, like we'll come back and finish the job type of deal. And then they're in your home longer, or you're having stuff, finish packing and loading on the same day, which you always want to avoid. Um,
Right.
so I just feel like if we can make that process easier and provide them some Chick-fil-A lunch, 30 count nuggets that they can all split or whatever, so for us, it just makes one, it makes it easier. They can keep working. They're out of my house sooner. And then two, it shows that little like, thanks for packing my home.
Yeah. Well, and
So
also, I mean, personal opinion, I'm always happier when someone's feeding me. Hello.
yes,
So,
yes. I mean,
like,
and
it's
I
just
will
human
say,
nature.
yeah, and I will say, I mean, even if you don't feed, if you don't tip, it's always appreciated that you have like some bottled water in your fridge, some Gatorade in your fridge, especially if you are moving in the summer or you live in the hot climate areas like El Paso, Texas, Florida, where it is really hot. Being able to offer them like a cold bottle of water, like, is
Yeah.
just, like offering a lot to them.
Yeah.
So
Be nice to your movers, guys. Everyone likes
yes,
to be fed, and no one likes to faint from dehydration. We're all humans, guys. And
yes.
sometimes I think we're humans who move more often than we would like to, but man, we got a lot of good stories and a lot of good lessons. And Megan, you have moved so many
Yes.
times. Thank you for sharing your lessons and your ninja-ness. That's not a word. Ninja skills with
Yes.
us here at PCS with Military.com. Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for listening to PCS with Military.com. Want more PCS advice? Check out the rest of our episodes wherever you get your podcasts. A special thanks to our sponsor, Navy Federal Credit Union, proudly serving all branches of the armed forces, veterans, and their families. No matter where you are in your military career, Navy Federal Credit Union has the products and resources to help you navigate your finances. Learn more at NavyFederal.org. Our members are the mission.